It's so good to see you, Ian, and it's thank you for giving me some of your time today.
Pleasure.
I've got to start. You have to allow me just 10 seconds, a little bit fanboy, because of the 12 years I've been interviewing people, I can't remember the last time I was so excited to spend some time with somebody. So thank you.
Who have you been interviewing, for heaven's sake?
Oh, I mean, loads of people from the film. John Carpenter is one of the big directors that I've loved over the years. You know, actors and musicians and so on. But I mean, you're such a big part of my film and television history. So it was so good to see your name on Renegades, and I've got what a cast! When I saw the cast for Renegades, it's just filled with people whose work I've loved for so long. It's, oh my God, there's all these different names, and it's you've got such a rich history through film and television and theatre. I'd love to know, do you at any point go when you see a name on a cast list, whether you're in them in a film or TV or theatre, do you ever get a little bit excited that you're going to work with whoever it may be?
Oh my God, I'm very starstruck. Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes, yeah, yes, absolutely. Lee, you know, the idea of working with Lee Majors, who of course I was watching as a young man, doing $6 Million Man, you know, all that sort of thing. Yes, indeed I do. I mean, I remember. Years ago, I was in a theatre in London. I was watching a play, and in front of me was Bill Nighy. And I thought to myself, I'd love to meet him. I really would. I'm such a fan of his. I think he's bloody wonderful. And in the intermission, in the interval, I thought I'll go and say hello. And then, of course, he was being surrounded by fans, and so I thought, oh, well, I'll leave him alone. Then we're walking, and I'm going to see a friend who has been in the show. So we're walking towards the stage door, and Bill's walking in front of me, and I'm thinking, oh, he's probably going to go and see somebody as well. And then we cluster together in that little area just inside the stage door, waiting for instructions to go up. And I'm thinking, I must sort of introduce, I'm so stupid. I'd love to say what a fan I am. And Bill Nye suddenly turns around to me and he says, Ian, he said, you probably won't remember. We met years and years ago. And of course, I had forgotten meeting this man, you know, who had become a kind of hero figure of mine. And that's the thing with fame. You know them better for their fame than for the fact that you actually have met them already. Yeah.
And you've worked with so many great people. Like I say, you know, the cast in this is incredible. And even though, I'm sure in lots of interviews, always Return of the Saint gets brought up. And I was a huge fan of that in the 70s, addicted to it. But whenever I think of you, Ian, there's always two films that comes to mind and one TV that you made one appearance in. So the two films is The Sorcerers and Witchfinder General. Love those films, two early films of yours. And of course, you're in it with Boris Karloff and Vincent Price, but I think you're spectacular in those films as well. And strangely enough, the TV one, I always remember you in the episode of Ripping Yarns with Michael Palin.
Yeah. Well, that is quite memorable, that one, isn't it?
Oh, it's very memorable. And there you've got horror, you've got comedy, and of course with Renegades you've got action. Is there any particular genre that you prefer to be in, or do you approach the roles differently depending on the genre?
Well, I've always, because of my theatre background, and because so much of the theatre is comedy, I think that's my strong suit. I mean, I think I'm better at that than anything else. I certainly enjoy doing that the most, particularly in the theatre where you get feedback from an audience. You get something right, you get a sucking great laugh. You don't get that in movies or television. Unless you're doing a sitcom on television. And I did a sitcom for quite a successful one with Lionel Jeffries and Bridget Forsyth back in the 80s called Tom, Dick and Harriet, which was actually quite successful, but then it all fell apart because Lionel didn't want to do anymore, and that was the end of it. But I love doing all that, yeah. So yes, I don't know what the answer. I can't remember what the question was.
Yeah, if there was any particular genre that you did enjoy, so it seems like comedy. Seems to be.
I would say comedy. I mean, I've done here in the States. I've done quite a lot of guest appearances on sitcoms. Where you have the audience and things, and that's all great fun. It's nerve-wracking, but it's fun. Yeah.
And does the comedy vary?
I'm a bit old for action stuff now. I mean, Jonathan, bless his heart, Jonathan puts us old guys in his action movies, and can you run up those stairs? And I say, well, I can walk fairly quickly up them, but I'm not going to be able to run. No.
You're all in fine shape, though, I've got to admit, and especially yourself, Ian. I mean, is there any secret to how you keep in such good shape?
No, none at all. None at all. None at all. Just luck, I think, probably more than anything else. Yep. Yeah. I mean, I gave up drinking a couple of years ago, so that might help. And I had given it up before for several years, and I've gone back to it. But now I'm really am off it, and I'll probably be off it for the rest of my life. And I certainly feel better for that. And I exercise. When I say I exercise, I walk my dogs up here in the park. We have a wonderful park in Los Angeles called Griffith Park, and it's very hilly. And it's wild and wonderful trails. And I do about 2 miles every day with the dogs. And I guess that's it, really, you know. And I try not to eat too much.
Well, that's a good mixture, I think.
But other than that, I don't do anything.
It's funny you should say about alcohol, really, because I know I don't want to give too much away of what happens in Renegades because I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it. But there's one particular scene where there's you and other characters, because I don't want to say the characters' names because you don't know who's going to live and you don't know who's going to die in this. But you're all in a pub and you've all got a pint. And I was wondering how long that scene took. Was it a real pub? Was it real beer that you were drinking? Did lines get forgot if it was real beer?
It's a real pub, but it's not working. It's not a working pub. It was kind of slightly derelict, actually.
Okay.
And we took it over, and that's why it looks a little odd at times at certain angles, a little strange. That back room where we meet for our meetings really was sort of like a coal hole, you know. You know what? When we had a drink, no, that would have been fake beer, I think. Yeah, that would have been fake beer. There was one moment where I actually got not cross, but I was where our lovely director, very sweet man, very, very, very kindly, and it was meant as a kind of joke. We all had to have little shots of something, and I can't remember what. And I naturally assumed it was apple juice because it always is.
Yeah.
And I did that, but I threw it back, and it was tequila, and I hadn't had a drink as I say for 2 years. And I went, Daniel, I'm not. He's oh shit, I'm so sorry, man. And he did it as a gag, but yeah, it was odd. Yeah.
You must have had some strange experiences in film and TV, and I think it must be surely the worst thing to have. So things go wrong or thrown at you unexpectedly would be in live theatre as well, because at least in film and TV it can be lost in the edit, can't it?
Yeah, just do it again. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Is there anything that jumps to mind that is one of the most unexpected or strange or funniest things that's happened to you?
Not funny this, but it was something about another actor. Really, many years ago, they did the BBC did a big fat television show all about Churchill, and they got Richard Burton come in and play Churchill, and I played Edward VIII, and he and I had various scenes where he tries to persuade me not to abdicate, and he sort of slightly ignored me, and he was quite aloof man.
Yeah. And
on the actual day of the recording, he seemed terribly nervous and frightened, and he grabbed me and he said, "Could I ask you something? What happens if I dry up? What happens if I dry? I forget my line." I said, "We just stop, Richard, and you start again." He said, "I can do that on television?" I said, "Yes, it's not live television. You can absolutely do that." And it was odd that he was frightened all of a sudden about in a medium he'd never worked in. You know, and I'd worked in it forever. Yeah. Yeah, it was the only time he really spoke to me. Actually, apart from the written lines, it was pretty much the only thing. Yeah. But in terms of funny things happening on sets, mostly they happen in the theatre because you're doing the same thing every night, and something goes wrong, you know. And I've written about some of those fairly extensively. I mean, I have an autobiography out if anybody's interested, which is called Once a Saint. And I tell some stories about the funny things that happened in the theatre. Yeah. And I remember years ago when I was very young. I remember the great Nigel Hawthorne, Sir Nigel Hawthorne, who died. He and I were in a play together, and I had to say the line to him. I went downstairs for a sandwich, and I thought one night, I'll make him giggle, I'll make him laugh. And I said I went downstairs for a peanut butter sandwich, and he stopped. He said and instead of going on, he went, "Oh, what?" I said, "A peanut butter sandwich." He said, "A peanut butter sandwich? I thought you hated peanut butter." I went, "No, I kind of like it." Really? He said, "Was it smooth peanut butter or crunchy peanut butter?" He would not let me go. He said, "Have you told Mom? I know she hates you. You always hated. You always turned down peanut butter at home." We were playing brothers. He went on and on and on, and it was a lesson. And the lesson was, don't fuck around with me. I'm better at it than you are. Yeah.
That's great. And you mentioned you
where did you get this peanut butter sandwich? Well, I went to Jack's. Don't lie to me, kid. Jack's was closed 3 years ago. Oh my God, it was terrifying. Yeah.
You mentioned your autobiography, and it's got such a great cover to it as well. It's so different. It's so eye-catching that if you're,
well, I had to fight for that. Yes.
Did you?
I had to fight. Well, a bit, yes, because they always want just a black and white photograph, a sort of smouldering kind of over the shoulder, like headshot, And I want a cover where if you see it on a table in Waterstones, full of books, I want mine to be the one you pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I pushed for that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it definitely works. It was a great decision to have that as the cover. That's for sure.
I wanted to call it A Pea in the Snow, but they wouldn't let me.
Was there any particular reason for a pea in the snow?
Yeah. The P was spelled PEA, by the way.
Aha.
There's a moment when I was shooting The Saint when we were doing a skiing episode. And the director was rather a tiresome man. And the first assistant director was a lovely, funny man called Gino. And everything was ready to go. And we were standing there in the snow. I'm skiing and all the rest of it. And ready to go. And we're about to say action. And suddenly Gino shouts out, "Hang on, Governor, hang on a second." He said, I can't cue the other skiers with my whistle. He said, because I've lost the P. And the director said, "What?" He said, the P's come out of my whistle, Gov. So it doesn't. I can't make it work. He said, "Surely it works without the P." He said, No, we got to find the P. Everybody looked for so he got the whole crew, and of course all the crew knew what was going on, and so did I. It was just a gag. We were all on our hands and knees in the snow looking for the P from Gino's whistle. And the director was getting more because he didn't get the joke at all. He thought it was anyway. Eventually, the fictitious P was eventually found and replaced. But it was just one of those things that let's teach this stupid director a lesson about. It was great. But that's why I wanted to call it A P in the Snow.
That would have worked definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I did see you. It wasn't on the cover. It was on a poster. Actually, it was yesterday, and I'm sure you can't really say too much about this, but I did see you on a poster for Renegades 2. Are you allowed to say anything? Is it going to be a thing? Can we sort of tease that might be happening? Or is it just a fan thing that went up?
Well, the end of the movie is kind of left with the hook. There's a hook at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So I think Jonathan's plan was to do a Renegades 2. I think you'll have to hurry up because we'll all probably be dead by then, But yeah, I mean, sure. Listen, the jobs are not. When you get to my age, you're not inundated with acting jobs. I am involuntarily retired. I'd like not to be, but they just don't turn up anymore. It's just a fact of life. It's nothing to do with anybody or anything. So, dear old Jonathan, I'm very grateful to him. He pulls me out of retirement and puts me in these things, and I have a lovely time. He also flies me over to England, which is wonderful because I have family there. I have my son, my daughter, I have grandchildren there. So, I get to come over and spend a little time with them and spend time on a film set, which is a place I've always been very happy. And I'm happy. Yeah, sure. I know nothing about Renegades 2, other than the fact that it's a possibility.
Well, I hope people continue to give you work, Ian, because, like I said,
so do I.
Long may you continue doing it.
Yeah.
And I know we're coming up to the end of the time, and I could talk to you for hours. If you do ever have any other time, I would love to talk to you about this. So much you've done in your career that I've enjoyed over the years, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And yeah, like I say, keep employing Ian Ogilvy, for God's sake.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. It's an absolute pleasure having a chat with you.
Thanks a lot.
All
okay.
Right. Thank
Bye
you.
now.
Thank you.